What was another suggestion that was brought up by the committee last week was that not only that we have the numbers and the percentages, but they wanted to have the district comparison numbers. So that's why next to it, next to each one of those, you have the district numbers. So you can see economically disadvantaged, for example, in GT, that we have 11.5% it represented in our GT program, but the district has 23.7%. So, and you can see on there. Does that make sense to you? Okay. I wanted you to have the revision, and this is a draft, so we always appreciate your input. The next change is just minor, but it's on page 40, and you have that. It was pointed out that we had listed as a resource a director of operations, which we no longer have, and there was one place it was in there, which I believe was the first one, educate faculty, parents, etc., and safety policies. And I'm sure that the reason for that is there are some strategies that remain in here, and you know how you cut and paste, and I missed that one, so that's gone, okay? So I just wanted you to have those updates. And if you have any other questions on the plan itself, please let me know, okay? Good with that? Good with that? Okay, good. Okay, so let's go ahead and what I'm going to do is what I've been doing in the past couple of years is just giving you some of the highlights of the plan. You have the whole plan to read, and basically I'm just going to highlight some of the major changes that we have made for hopes that you will approve. And because of the fact that you have been kept apprised of a lot of these, you're familiar with them, but we need to present it. So first of all, I just want to point out that we've added the LVISD motto, which is LVISD is committed to knowing every student by name and need. And that is something that we are really emphasizing in all aspects of everything that we do. So that's appeared on the front page. I don't know if I can do. Okay. So then you're familiar with core values, LVISD core values. And I was going to cover this up and ask you to recite it, but I'm not. But we all know, and we try to emphasize them again in everything that we do, with our meetings, with teachers, administrators, everything that we do that we want to tie back to the core values, and those are commitment, high expectations, respect, student-centered, and teamwork. The next, okay. I'm not going to go over these because you're familiar with them, and so are we. But everything in the plan does need to tie back to the board goals, which you have adopted, so they will look very familiar to you. These are the major areas that are addressed in the district improvement plan: advanced academics and GT, career technology education, core academics. A new one that we added this year, which is very important and we're very proud of, is leadership development. That has been something that we have not included in the past. Community involvement, recruiting and retaining highly qualified staff, safe and secure schools, and technology integration. Format of the district improvement plan has not changed. I'll just reiterate them. They include, each area includes a belief statement, goals, performance objectives, needs assessment, and strategies. And as you know, this was not developed in isolation, but each year we have had a committee to look at it and make recommendations. Okay, something that we would like you to remember is that the district improvement plan serves as a blueprint for the campus improvement plan. And so it is generally more general than the campus plans. Includes major district initiatives and strategies that we must include and that we want to include, but the campuses, when they develop it, now that they'll have the revisions, they're in the process of meeting with their campus improvement teams And there are, I guess it would be campus academic excellence teams now, to make those revisions, and they will be in accordance with our district improvement plan. And the little guys over there is just a little reminder that it is a living and breathing document. Okay, it was the best I could find. Those documents are living and breathing. I'm going to ask Shannon Burns to come up now and talk about the next piece.
Good evening. I know you're all very familiar with this. This is our district accountability summary for the district, and as we reviewed with you before, we did meet all 4 of the indices. We did meet standard there, but those safeguards, there were a few of the safeguards, and that is another component that we have to address in the district and campus improvement plans. So those 3 safeguards that we as a district have to address is reading and writing for special ed and reading for our English language learners. So that will be addressed in the the district improvement plan. Another area that we have to address is PBMAS, the results. And PBMAS, just as a reminder, is the performance-based monitoring appraisal system. That is the system that TEA has in place to monitor the effectiveness of our programs that we receive federal funds for. Those programs include special ed, ESL, CTE, which is Career Technology Education, and Title I. So some of the indicators they use to evaluate the program effectiveness, they look at STAR passing rates of students in those programs, they look at diploma plans, graduation rates, course completion rates for CTE, STAR participation rates for special ed students, the representation of the different subpopulations in special ed and DAEP placements. And that's not every single one of the indicators, but that's just some examples. So based on the standard, the PBMAS standards that they set, they look at how many of those indicators we met that standard on, and based on the number of indicators that you did not meet, they stage your program for that year. So in 2013-14, we were stage 1. Stage 1, they rank you from stage 1 to stage 4, stage 4 being most critical. So ESL, we were in stage 1 last year. This year, we were in stage 1 again. Title I, we were in stage 4 last year, and this year we bumped down to stage 3. But we talked to you about our Title I program and how we are making some changes this year with putting all of our Title I funds at the early intervention, focusing on early intervention at the primary campus. So we will be talking about the changes that will result from that. And last year for special ed, we were in stage 3, and this year we were not staged at all for special ed. So we need to definitely give some credit to our special ed teachers, special ed staff for the work that they put into making sure we were more effective this year. Oh, Title I, I know we talked about this, but just to go in a little more detail on how we are a little different from other schools. We are targeted assistance. A targeted assistance campus, which means that not all of our students are identified. We only identify a certain percentage. To be a school-wide title campus, you have to have 40% low SES. So we do not have that. So therefore, we're targeted assistance. So it means we just identify a small portion of our students. In the past, we've identified the students, the 10% of our students that were most at risk of failing. And so they put us in the same rating with the other school-wide campuses, which means they put all of their kids, they have to have 70% of their whole population meet STAR passing standards, whereas we have to have 70% of our 10% that we identified most at risk of failing. So the odds of, it puts us, the success rate is not real great when you're identifying just your bottom 10% and wanting 70% of those students to meet passing standard on STAR. We identified them for a reason because they were most at risk of failing. So what we are doing now is focusing all of our Title I funding on early intervention at the primary campus.
We are required to submit a continuous improvement plan to TEA, which we're in the process of working on. Do you have any questions so far on any of that? Was it pretty clear? Awesome. Okay. So again, I just want to reference this. I know you're familiar with it, but I just want to reference it because it will be referred to in the district plan highlights. But as you know, with House Bill 5, there are some new graduation plans in place. And just to reiterate, there's a foundation program of 22 credits. There's a foundation program with endorsements, which is 26 credits. And those are in STEM, business and industry, arts and humanities, public service, and multidisciplinary studies. And as we said before, we're very pleased that a district our size can offer endorsements in each of those areas. Now, we can't offer every single program of study that is available in those areas, but we do offer some. And so all of our students have an opportunity to earn one of those endorsements. And then the other one is Distinguished Graduate and Foundation Program with Distinction. And really at this point, the major difference is Algebra 2. Most of our students do take Algebra 2, and I don't know, I'm not a mind reader, but as you know, the state legislature is going to be meeting again, and I would bet that maybe they're going to make that change and require Algebra 2 again, because most of the four-year universities have said that they do want Algebra 2 for our students, so for their students. So those are the programs. Questions? Good. Okay, so let's talk about some of the major highlights that are new. In advanced academics and GT, we have 147 students, up from 122. They're currently enrolled in classes for college credit. We are hoping to enter into a partnership with Alamo Community Colleges. In fact, Dr. Moreno, we have a meeting set up next week or the week after, the 17th. To discuss, consider implementation, possible implementation of an early college high school model. In an early college high school model, and there are several. Some are standalone, some are schools within a school, there are many different, some are hybrids. So we're hoping to meet with them, or planning to meet with them, and hoping to come up with something that we might be able to implement here in Vernia, where our students would be able to leave with 60 credits, 60 hours, and actually the equivalent of an associate's degree when they graduate. So that is something that we're looking into. This year, junior high students may earn high school credits in Algebra 1, Art 1, Spanish 1, and American Sign Language. American Sign Language has been very popular, and I'm amazed at what the students are learning. And then we do have an array of GT services. Okay. Questions? Okay. So career tech, what's new? Well, you're familiar with this because you approved this at the workshop, but we do, we're entering into a district partnership with ACC and Alamo Area Academies to offer industry-driven programs in these areas. Aerospace, advanced tech and manufacturing, health professions, information technology, and heavy equipment. Those students will leave with a level 1 certification and several hours of dual credit that they can apply to college if they so wish. And the representatives are over at the high school this evening, along with the dual credit program that's being presented. So they were here to talk to students last week, and we're hoping that we'll have some students, several students participating in those academies. And then we're exploring business and community partnerships for internships, and we've been approached on this. So we're not there yet, but we are going to hopefully plan with them for possibilities for certifications in hospitality and tourism, HVAC, and my friends told me I had to spell it out, but I think you know what that means. So, questions? Either you don't have any questions or you're saving them all to the end. So core academics, what's new? So we have a K-12 literacy initiative. And thank you for our wonderful literacy coaches, Brandy Hanselka and Tracy Vitus. They're doing an amazing job. for their first year. You'd never guess it was their first year. They're really making a difference working alongside a consultant, Kelly Harmon, who's with us this year, and for ongoing professional development. They're doing a great job. I know it's making a difference, and also implementation of K-12 writing portfolio. Implementation of HB5 graduation plans. Again, I already told you we're able to offer programs of study in each of the major endorsement areas. We now have an emphasis on ongoing review and analysis of assessment data to drive instruction. Promoting continued individual intervention plans and progress monitoring for struggling students, and that includes refining and strengthening our RTI process, and we're continuing to emphasize technology integration. Oh, forgot this. So core academics, what's continuing and what's new? Yeah, you have that. Okay, so as you know, we started a dual language pre-K program this year.
I'm sorry, can I go back to the last one?
The last one?
Yeah, I figured I'd ask my questions instead of waiting to the end.
Oh, sure.
I do have a couple questions there. One of the things that came up, I want to say last year, was that we didn't spend enough of our state comp funds.
Yes.
And so are we on track with that in the RTI process and kind of piecing those things together as far as using those state comp funds to support those struggling students?
And we've been talking about that, and Katie, do you want to call on our financial expert?
We actually did spend enough funds. The auditor was looking at the wrong number, so we were fine.
Okay.
But however, we are going to target that.
Okay.
Yes, and have a better plan.
And then the second question I had was the way that this is worded. It says continue to emphasize technology. Thank you. Continue to emphasize technology integration to enable students to access technology for instruction outside of school.
Mhm.
What does that look like?
Well, and I guess it should probably say inside and outside. Outside of school would be, because, you know, so many of our textbooks are digital and so many of our resources are digital now, including our intervention programs, like students are able to access iStation and other programs outside of school. So we want to make sure that that's available. And then also, we have been looking at the flipped classroom. Some of our teachers are using that, where the students actually use the technology at home prior to class. So those kinds of things.
So are we talking about primarily software, not hardware?
Yes. In this, yes. But Scott's going to talk about some of the things that we're doing in technology later. Okay? Answer your question? Okay. So again, we started our dual language pre-K program. It's going great. Shannon has a student in there. And I'm already amazed, we're already amazed at how much Spanish they know. They're little sponges. You know, the window of opportunity for learning a foreign language is young, starting at that age through age 10, birth through age 10. And so we're very happy with that. And we have an amazing teacher, and we're hoping it's serving, well, it is serving as an impetus as we plan for our K-5 dual language program for implementation next year. So we'll be adding kindergarten. We need to do some recruiting. We'll talk about that later for teachers because I think we don't have to recruit our students. We had a waiting list. But we met with someone funny, Shannon Burns's, it comes sort of supervising that program, and we're excited. We think we'll be ready to go now. We know we'll be ready to so thank you for your support in that. I don't know. Edgenuity is, you may remember NovaNet. We used to talk about that. That was a credit recovery program that was used at the high school, and we are switching over to Edgenuity. And right now, although it's primarily being used for credit recovery, there are lots of opportunities for acceleration, taking courses that we can't offer that sort of thing. So for example, if a student transfers in and has 2 years of German, and we don't offer German, there are possibilities for that. And then project-based learning, which I know you've heard me talk about, is authentic learning, commonly known as PBL, where where students are engaged at a high level of rigor. And at one point, probably at one of our workshops, we'd love to have some of the teachers who are implementing some of those plans. And primarily it is our science and mathematics teachers. We are correlating it with STEM so far, but we hope to expand that. But we'd love to have them come and share what they're doing. Questions? You can save them up, it's okay. Okay, so the next one is that we haven't had is leadership development. So quickly, and we had a lot of new, so this year, which is great. So you can see. So we're have developed in the process of refining, remember it's living and breathing, cohesive ongoing plan for leadership development in our district. This summer we had a summer leadership symposium which will, for our administrators and central office staff, which will continue. We're already, Dr. Moreno is already being proactive in getting that set up for next year. Crucial conversations, our administrators have had training part 1 on that. The next part is crucial confrontation, so we'll see what that is, but basically it's communication strategies to improve instruction on the campus. We've had 360 walkthrough training, Lead Forward, which is a data analysis tool, unwrapping the teeth. Gervais Schaefer has really done a good job. We had 2 sessions. We had one with our leadership team and administrators, central office staff in September, and then last week we had our first Super Saturday session. We had 21 teachers attend and some administrators, and really the evaluations were excellent. I have them if you'd like to see them. I think they really got a lot out of it, and I think it will really help to improve instruction. We have weekly instructionally focused coaching sessions for principals and central office staff, and we underline instructionally focused. We have bi-weekly instructionally focused coaching sessions for assistant principals and instructional staff, and quarterly data review sessions with principals and central office staff. And that's really critical to being able to see if what's working and what's not, and where our students are, and if we're really knowing every student by name and need.
Question? So, as we're kind of redefining what we expect from our school principals and assistant principals, have we redefined the evaluation tool that's being used for those staff members as well, or is that something that we need to look at?
Well, we've been using 360 walkthrough, and they are conducting a lot of walkthroughs.
Well,
but you
I'm
mean
not talking
PDF?
about, no. I'm not talking about what they're using for the teachers. I'm talking about the tool to use to evaluate the administrators.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So as we're saying, these are the things.
Okay.
That, my boss always says, what gets monitored gets done.
Yes, definitely.
And so are we, as we're looking at principal evaluation and assistant principal evaluation, are we modifying the evaluation to fit the things that we're saying they need to be doing?
If I can comment on that. Part of the structure, Dr. Miller, that we look at that is a quarterly review with our principals. And that's based on, again, the pieces that we've looked at. Number 1, looking at crucial conversations as part of it. That actually happens on a week-to-week basis as far as what strategies we look at and use. That way we don't just do a training and move on. It's actually being utilized as an effective tool. When we look at our quarterly reports with our principals, we're looking at some key and specific areas. So for example, one of the things that we look at right now is based on one of the new initiatives that we have, and that's an expansion of iStation. iStation, we're going to monthly monitor our students as far as how many students are reading at or above grade level. So that's one of those indicators that we look at. We also look at the number of walkthroughs that we're conducting, making sure that we're maintaining not only the 15 that we do per week, but also exceeding the 15 per week. Another thing we're looking at, and very proud to say and continue to say, is that our staff's working very hard, is that we also have attendance as one of those indicators. and not only meeting our district goal of 96.2%, but exceeding that. And right now, I'll tell you, last week, I just get chills thinking about it. I mean, mostly on average, every school was over 2%. 2% of their goal. And that's really going back and attributing back to their focus. As an area, everybody knows the plan. Started with a principal, which leadership is key, assistant principal, office staff, teachers, kids, and really incentivizing based on that and very incrementally. Let's not wait till the end of 9 weeks. Let's look at that week to week as we start progressing forward. And on top of that, even membership. We just took our snapshot this past week. So based on that snapshot, what are we doing at this point to be able to maintain the kids that we have? Now, Vernia in our structure, most of the times when we're going to have a family leaving is because they're moving out of town. But that doesn't mean that we don't stop and have an exit interview or a conversation to find out why exactly that they're leaving and is there anything that we can do to keep them here. So again, to answer your question, it goes back to a quarterly review with every principal.
And then that'll lead to a summative that reflects the things that you said are valuable for them as administrators.
Exactly.
And one of the things too is that Dr. Moreno asked that we be invited to their campus data meetings and grade level meetings, and so that gives information as well. Does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so moving on to parent and community involvement, I think that the transition from Educational Improvement Council to Academic Excellence Council is something to note there, because it's giving a whole different focus and emphasis as to what we're doing, and we want to involve the community in it. Our community education program is still in full force. District community collaboration. This is something that we haven't, we've done really well this year, and it started this year with the Newcomers Fair, as many of you know. Elaine Stevens from the Historical Society approached Dr. Moreno and said, what can we do to help? We told her about the Newcomers Fair, and my goodness, we had like tons of booths. And she wants to do a lot more, just not for newcomers, but for the community. And so they're really helping us. We're building those partnerships with them, the Chamber of Commerce, and the city and other people. So that's really good. And then common interest parent groups, that's your GT, ESL, those kinds of groups that we're hoping to, dyslexia, that we want to encourage. Okay, along the same lines, last year, and I've talked to you about this, House Bill 5 required us to do a district self-evaluation for parents and community engagement. Those are the results, and you can see where we rated ourselves. We had to develop our own criteria, which we did with committees. Each one was broken into a committee, and they developed the criteria. And if any of you are so inclined that you would like to see what that is, we certainly can arrange that. But you can see that we took this, as I told you, many districts said, oh, well, we'll just give ourselves an exemplary rating. But we wanted it to be a tool that would help us to grow and improve, and everything is reflected in the plan. Questions on that? We do think it's probably going to be the same this year, the same kind of process, but I'm not sure how it will look in the future, whether TEA might develop some criteria for us or not. So then we have recruiting and retaining highly qualified teachers, and we just providing ongoing professional development and using data to inform instruction, our ongoing PD with our literacy collaboration team. We're promoting a focus on writing across the curriculum because that was an area we needed. Ongoing PD and the implementation of the new mathematics TEKS. Dana has really been, we were proactive in that last year so that our teachers were not totally unfamiliar with them, but as you know, the new math TEKS are, you know, some of you, they're quite different. They're very rigorous and challenging, and so it's a lot. Things have moved around, and so we're providing that. Okay, so one thing that we did add this year is we always encouraged them, teachers before, but we're requiring newly hired professional staff to complete with supporting PD following certifications, GT, ESL, and special education within the first 2 years of their employment. And they do sign something that they will do that. And we provide the PD for them, and we give them the support they need to take the assessment and have it put on their certification, because we feel that teachers need to have that repertoire of strategies in their toolbox.
And so if they don't complete that?
Well, it says I guess they can be, I'm not HR anymore, so.
Well, that was.
They wouldn't be renewed. I mean, I think that's it. They say that they will, so, they sign, correct?
And is this new this year?
Last year.
This is this year?
With this new crop of people,
So this is the first year?
yes.
Okay.
So they have until next summer.
And then
But
we-
many of the newly hired people already did it this summer. Because we provide the training right here in the district. We've been doing that for a number of years. It's been optional, but we didn't feel like we could say, okay, everybody who's been here has to do it. But it's not unusual to have a district say that this is what we expect.
Well, and I if you've got, I would imagine if you have a brand new first year teacher, it would be easy to do that in some regards because you've got 3 years. But if you hire experienced teachers, which I know we strive to do,
Yeah.
you have 1 year on a probationary certificate. So what does that look like at the end of year 2 if they haven't completed that?
Well, I think as long as they're on their way, I mean, I don't know, that's a very good question. We hadn't
And I
thought
know,
about
I
that.
hear where you're going with the question, and I think that that's something we need to continue to review, because when we run into it next year, if we do have some, one of the things we need to define is also, let's say for ESL, for instance, ESL, we might have one opportunity to take the test, maybe another opportunity, but how long are we going to continue giving that opportunity to take the test
Right.
and pay for it? So that'll be something we can review, Dr.
Well,
Murray.
and if they don't, I mean, if they're an effective teacher, but they don't pass their ESL certification test, are we willing to part ways? I mean, is that the hill we're going to die on, so to speak, that we're willing to part ways with somebody who may be an effective teacher but can't pass one of those specific tests?
Well, I think as long as they're pursuing it, I think we would really have to look at it on an individual basis, correct?
The main key on this is really, what are we trying to strive here? That
Right.
we are trying to make sure that our teachers are better prepared to serve all students.
Right.
And as the years progress and we start seeing a little bit of difference in our demographics, is making sure that we are ahead and prepared. So again, to go back to it, I think there's going to be some unanswered questions at this
Yes.
point, and really look at how we look at this and even contractually what that means for us.
But I think it sends a message. It sends a strong message that we want our teachers to have these certifications and we want them to be prepared. Many students are coming out of universities already having, ESL and/or special education. But we're trying to send that message that it's important that you be able to work with all students, from your highly gifted to your most struggling. Okay, good question. And then we need to expand recruiting of highly qualified teachers, especially in high demand areas and content certified professional. By that, our biggest high demand area right now is going to be bilingual. I've already tried to steal some people from other districts unsuccessfully so far. They won't let me in. The principals won't let me in. But that is an area that we do need to look at, and Ms. Barron is in the process of setting up some participation in job fairs, which we haven't done before. And when I say content certified professionals, that means that we're trying to recruit teachers at the secondary level who have a master's degree in their discipline so that they can teach dual credit, especially if we're trying to expand toward an early college, high school, or more dual credit options. Questions? Okay. Safe and secure. Oh. Okay. Told you I can't do two things at once. Well, I mean, okay. So safe and secure schools, a lot of this, some of it's not new, but you have to include it. So I just want to reiterate some things you've seen before: sexual harassment, bullying, Something that's come up lately, of course, has been prevention and management of communicable diseases. And so I know that Ms. Dixon has been involved with some training in that area. The newest one is this mental health first aid, which we are going to partner with Camino Real. It's required training, and I don't believe, where's the sentence? We haven't worked out that this is brand new, but we are going to partner with them. Include such areas as suicide prevention, and depression, those things that teachers and staff need to be trained in. So more information on that will be coming. We're promoting wellness and physical education at the campus and district level. Well, not so much at the district for me, but exercise classes, healthy eating, and campus wellness activities. And you saw an example today with kiddos from the intermediate school, and they're walking. So Scott, would you just come up and talk a little bit about what's new in your area? Scott?
Hi. So in the technology realm, in the meeting, of course, we talked about the things that we're going to do to try to further integrate technology as well as allow students greater access from home. So I'm just going to kind of skip around the list, but increasing bandwidth is one of our top priorities. We've been waiting for over a year for GVEC to bring their line down 775 here so that we can tap into it, which will give us about double the bandwidth that we have now at about 20% of the cost that we're paying for Verizon currently. So still waiting, hoping that happens sooner rather than later. Moving to a hosted email system, that's going to allow us to get our email server out of our data center, which is limited on, not the data center, but the server is limited on space, and again, bandwidth into the district is of course at a premium. So having something hosted outside of the district would allow us to have greater backup, greater availability, uptime, those kind of things. Additional professional development and technology integration. Talking with Cheryl, our PD over the last couple of years has been focused so hard on iPad integration because we were doing that with the teachers, and since we're not doing that, handing out those iPads anymore, we can work with integrating with what the students are bringing, whether that's an iPad or a laptop or a Chromebook or an Android phone or any of those devices. We're going to focus more on doing those types of professional development, getting a more diverse device type of trainings, so it's teachers are ready and able to utilize whatever the students are bringing to class. Cloud-based tools, again, this kind of moves towards the hosted email system too, like Google Docs, Office 365. Again, that allows students to have ubiquitous access from whatever device they're on, whether that's a phone or a tablet or a laptop or a desktop PC, and access that not only here at school, but also from home, and have the same look and feel wherever they are. And then providing students with and staff with a single sign-on, so we're trying to consolidate as many accounts as we can so that students and staff don't have to remember their password for 16 different services. They have fewer passwords. We're working toward a goal of getting one username, one password, which is a bit of a challenge, especially with things like Dane's finding out with Pearson, and so we have a pretty complicated password scheme for students that some companies are saying, oh, we can't accept these passwords because they have these characters in them that we don't accept, and so we're having to kind of adjust based on what some other companies are able to do for us. Moving away from single platform applications, again, like I said, we focused really hard on just iPad stuff. We want to move away from that and make sure that when we're talking about apps or we're talking about websites, that they're able to be accessed on multitude of devices, since we're allowing students to bring their own devices to school. Which we want to try to get LVISD out of the data storage business. So, our data center is decent. We have good, fairly new equipment, but we're very small. If, you know, something catastrophic happened, we have backups, but we would have experienced a lot of downtime. And so what we want to do is try to get as much of our data offsite as possible. Again, that goes towards the cloud-based storage, the hosted email systems, things of that nature, so that they're in data centers that are redundant, backed up, enterprise-ready type things, so that, you know, we can have access to our data whenever we want, wherever we want. Student portfolios via cloud devices. We're working, we're talking in a meeting last week about getting student portfolios, student writing samples in Aware, which is one of the hosted services that we use at Vernia, and being able to access those student portfolios, their work through the time that they're in the district, you know, again, from any device, any location, any place that they have access, and try to make it less complicated. The whole crux of all this is trying to make things less complicated, so that students don't have to download additional software, log into that software, log in. You know, we want to make things easy, so that when a student goes home, you know, they can pull up an app on their phone, or they can pull up a website on their computer, log in once, and be at where they need to be, instead of having to go through 6 steps to get to, you know, their data that's currently inside. So, you know, one of the things that I'm trying to do is back off of the VMware, because I don't know if y'all have tried that from home, but putting the VMware software on whatever device you have, whether it's a laptop or a phone or an iPad, you have to download the software, you have to know the server name, you have to know your username and password, you log in, and then you can get in and get into Microsoft Word, get into, you know, whatever it is that you want to get into. And there's, I feel like there's too many steps, there's too many places where things can go wrong. And so trying to back off of those points of failure for our students and for our staff, so that it's quicker and easier for them to get to the things that they need technology-wise. Questions?
With our current network, is there, for somebody to get onto our Wi-Fi network, is there a login that they have to have? Is there a way for us to identify who that device is tied to?
Yes and yes.
Okay.
Just within the last month, we implemented on the guest Wi-Fi network authentication scheme. So hopping on the guest Wi-Fi is not just something that anyone can do now. You actually have to have a district account or request a guest access to it.
Okay. So, for example, if somebody was using an app and it's something that they shouldn't be, then it would be
We can track it down to the device,
Okay,
yes.
good. The other question I had, you talked about providing after-hours access to the LV community.
Yes.
To what extent?
We don't know what that looks like yet. We're still kind of in the planning stages for that. But things like the library being open, you know, for people to come in and use the computers. There's guest accounts for that. They have to sign in. And so, you know, we're still tracking it in some areas, but we want to make sure, you know, that we're abiding by the rules for E-rate, for the federal guidelines and things like that. But provide access to the community, to our, you know, our network for people who may not have access at home.
Which brings up something that was kind of on my mind last week. There was an article in the paper about a group that had been organized for a number of years to bring a library to Vernia, disbanding, and as I was reading that, my thought turned to some of the school models in San Antonio, where there's a high school library that is jointly managed and run by the San Antonio Public Library System and the school district, and wondering if that would not be a possibility of a solution for our community to provide a library in La Vernia, while at the same time kind of meeting this need in a way that can be financially beneficial to both parties, so that the Wilson County library system isn't having to build and maintain a building, but at the same time, you know, perhaps we can share personnel costs and expenses, so that if we want to have after-hours access to the library and to our network, it's not costing us 100% of the personnel cost to open that facility either. So just something to explore.
Michigan High School is one that does that.
You mentioned providing iPads anymore. And I know our strategy when we did that was like a one-time good deal for
Right.
the teachers, but the expectation was if a new employee is coming, they'll provide an iPad. So have we gone away from that, that we're not focused on iPad instruction and tutorials, and it's whatever device the teacher wants to use?
That's correct.
When did that change occur? Because strategically, we invested a lot of money in the iPad because that's what we're hitching our wagon to, is the
Right.
iPad.
And because we weren't able to financially continue to provide that, and I don't know that we were contractually able to say, when you come to work for Vernia, you have to have an iPad, that we've just kind of said, you can bring a device, and we will help you support that device. I think that focusing on one particular device is probably, in the long run, a detrimental strategy, because the iPad over time is going to fade into whatever comes next. And so now we have 400 employees that have an iPad already, an iPad that's out of date. And so how do we continue to upgrade those devices, or demand that people continue to purchase something that may not be what's best for the school district?
Okay, I would just suggest that goes counter to your previous statement on trying to make things simple. Right? If you have multiple devices that you're supporting, that's not nearly as simple as supporting one device, right? And if we're going to require them to bring a device to work to do that, we certainly can require it to be a certain type of device. So the contractual obligation is, can we require them to bring a device? So if we can call out one device.
Right.
But I mean, I know that's not for you.
I think that when we're talking about what students are going to face when they leave Vernia ISD and head into college or the workforce, they're going to see, depending on what area they go into, they're going to see a number of different devices. So we want them to be prepared to use whatever's available. And I think limiting that to a single device is probably not in the best interest of the students.
I think there's more to that. You also talked about trying to reduce password, which is a good
Yes.
thing, but you're certainly aware of security implications by having one login and one password.
That's correct. Yes.
Which isn't always,
Right.
so we're balancing that out.
Well, and what we've
Because we don't
done,
want to give a path to the keys to the kingdom.
that's correct.
Or the intruder to be able to do very nefarious stuff.
Right. But we also want to make it so that we want to try to remove barriers for students so that they're not having to constantly, check and see which password I'm using for this one, which username I'm using for this one. In trying to remove those barriers, we are currently right now setting every student's password and not allowing them to change it. But the password is a combination of uppercase, lowercase, numbers, symbols, including equals, ampersands, every symbol that's on the keyboard, and it's all 8 characters or more. And so we're trying to let the students see this is what a secure password looks like, and you're going to use this password for these different things that we have in the district, and that way, if it comes upon that something does happen to a student's password, that we're able to change that one time and have it change across all those different services for the student.
Okay. Again, to your comment on trying to make it real world for them, in the real world, people have multiple passwords.
This is true.
In the industry, you don't get one password.
And that's what we're finding too, is, like I said, we're still having problems with going to that goal of a single sign-on, but trying to reduce the amount of work that students have to do in order to get into their services.
Is that just for students or is that teachers as well?
We're trying to do as much as we can for teachers to get to that single, but this year we're focused mainly on students, just so that we could have a list so that we would know where students are going. When, for example, we had the plan to implement the authentication scheme on the guest Wi-Fi. And so we wanted to be able to have the teachers have a list of these are your students, these are their passwords, so that when the students needed to get on, or they needed to get on Google Docs, the teacher could pull it up for them if they needed to. Because we knew the passwords were going to be complicated. And we wanted to provide the ability for the teacher to have that so that they can give that out to the student.
So if a student had a teacher's password to say Renaissance Learning, they wouldn't necessarily have their same password to Gradebook.
No, not on the teacher side, no.
Okay. As a student,
Yes. And,
let me
and
help you with accelerated
we
math.
highly discourage that. Any other questions?
Thank you for speaking normal language.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know that's hard. Okay, so I know that was a lot of information. Questions? Anything that you say up?
I have one that might be out left field. I'm just curious, how many sessions are we offering in the junior high of sign language?
How many? There's two, and at the high school.
Right. So sign language 2 will be offered next year? Mary?
Yeah, it's exciting. It is very exciting.
And trustees, I'd invite you at any time to visit one of those classrooms. It is incredible, and it will give you chills. See what you see. Incredible.
They don't talk. So I know I speak for all of us when I say thank you very much. I have no idea how much you do this to us, for your support of teaching and learning in our district. And I think together we will be able to achieve our mission, vision, and our motto of every student. Thank you. If you ever have any questions, you know we're fine. Thank you.
Have a motion to accept the,
So moved.
I have a motion made by Dr. Miller, seconded by Ms. Kravitz to accept the district improvement plan as presented. All in favor? Motion carries 6-0. The next item is consider and take possible action on approval of instructional materials adoption and committee. Dr. Moreno?
Trustees,